Hey everybody, today I just wanted to talk about what the biggest issue with Diablo 4 is and what's really kind of turning me off from even playing it all that much. I haven't been playing super heavily the past couple seasons, mainly because of work, but also because I haven't really been like, man, I just, you know, really, really want to play this awesome possum game, right? It's like, the end game just kind of blows. I don't even know what else to say about it. It really does, and I just kind of want to go over why and the main reason why it blows. And when you look at T3 and doing T3, you have to start farming ancestral gear. You also have to start leveling up your glyphs. So by the time you're really able to crush T3, you probably have some ancestrals. You probably also have some glyph upgrades. So then you think about, well, hey, now I'm ready to go do T4. And the thing is T4 is quite a bit harder than T3. But what do you actually get out of doing T4? And the answer is the exact same thing you got out of doing T3. There is literally no difference in the rewards, now except for maybe drop rates or like experience gain. It's like there's nothing that's actually compelling to make you want to take on the challenge that is T4 and to continue doing it. Not to mention, all the just the random bugs that seem to happen every season. Like right now, the one of this season that has been affecting me personally is for some reason after I use metamorphosis aspect, my character will just like pause and just stop moving. It's weird, and like I can't move the character for like 2 seconds. It like locks it in place. It's extremely odd. I've never had the issue before. But yeah. So with that being said, it's like, what are some solutions? Because I don't want to just be the guy that gets on and starts, just being like, oh, D4 sucks, Blizzard sucks, blah 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 blah. I kind of wanted to put out some solutions and see what you guys think, because honestly, I think the solutions are actually a lot simpler and then like what would meet the eye, and the answer is just put something compelling to chase after. So one thing they could do is, and they're already going to do it in future seasons, but they're worried about Infernal Hordes for some reason, and I don't know why they're worried about Infernal Hordes. Like I saw they were doing something with them in one of the seasons on the roadmap, and it's like, why? But leaderboard should be like probably the number one thing that they need to put in, because they need to find a way for people to actually kind of ignite that competitive nature where people are pushing, for higher and higher rifts. The next thing is, and I really hate to say this, I almost feel like they need an infinite scaling mechanic similar to what, D3 had, where they just kind of uncapped Paragon, which sounds weird, but they need to add some type of progression system in like that keeps people wanting to do T4, because the reason why you like kept doing higher and higher greater rifts in Diablo 4 was because it gave you access to, augments. I'm not sure if you guys are, for those of you that haven't played D3, you would get these things called augs, and what it would do is it would just put a bunch of extra main stat onto your gear, so you would go do higher and higher greater rifts so you could get that, and if you couldn't do the highest tier to get the highest aug, you wouldn't be able to get that, right? Whereas in the current state of Diablo, you can get everything you can get in T4 on T3. Another solution would be to make gear scale one more step. Instead of having it cap out at 800, they actually just say, okay, well, your T4 gear caps out at 850, because I don't think there's anything wrong with gear continuing to scale with each difficulty tier. I think it just makes sense, and I don't think there's anything wrong with T4 just being crushable at some point after they get the gear. But when you have the exact same level of gear on T3 and T4, it's just not very compelling. It's like, well, why not just go to T3 and farm it on there, because it's just way easier, and then I can go to T4 and I can just go try to crush it there, right? And then another thing too is in that vein of, oh my god, why would I do something that's harder when I could do the same thing, get the same result easier, I guess would be the common theme here. So what they also need to do is they need to take, like, for example, the T4 bosses. So the first thing would be, add like gear that scales further. That's going to be, very important. I think going up to like 850, 900 or something would be totally fine. And then right? They need to find a way to incentivize people doing the harder bosses. And I think the way you incentivize people to do the harder bosses would be make it when you do a boss on T4, the uniques or the gear that drops are like, there's like a little bit more of an edge to them, right? Like let's say they drop like, and they're going to be like 30 item level higher. So that would actually give you a reason to do the world bosses, or sorry, to like actually farm the bosses, aside from just trying to farm uber uniques that you can also farm, on T3, right? This would incentivize players to actually want to go do the bosses because they could get higher level gear. Now, some people would say, well, hold on, because then everybody would just be incentivized to do the bosses only, and that's all everybody would do. Well, no, you could, put a limit on it. You don't have to make everything drop. You could just make like higher item level weapons drop, for example, off the bosses, and that would be enough for people to want to do it, because getting a 30 or 40 item level higher weapon for doing the T4 bosses would definitely, that would be enough of an incentive for most players to do it, because it's going to be a damage. And when you combine that with leaderboards, people are going to want to do every single thing they can to gain that advantage, right? Another thing too is you could add alternative content that you can go do that's going to give you the higher item level gear, and then you can also scale the difficulty of it. Now, obviously, the logistics of this, it's like, easier said than done. But I mean, they have the stats where they should be able to realistically do this on the back end. But then what they could do is create like another system, another thing that they incentivize. It could even be like the pit. It could be nightmare dungeons. Who knows? Because right now, it's like, I think nightmare dungeons, the primary function of those would really just to get like Obdicite or something like that, right? But what you could do is then you could go do another function where it's like, okay, well, if you want to get slightly higher item power armor, you need to go do this, right? And then the same thing's going to apply with the uniques. It's like, oh, well, if you want this slightly higher item powered unique, like, 30 to 40 or whatever, higher item power, well, you need to go do this, T4 boss. And that alone would be like, okay, now I have like an actual reason to do this boss, right? And then, and then what they need to do would be going back to where I said they need to have like an infinite kind of paragon system in a way, if that makes sense, or just some type of system that progresses the character in some way. This is probably going to be the hardest thing to get right out of the suggestions, but it's pretty much, I think, what really needs to be done, because you want people, constantly playing. You want people pushing the leaderboards and being competitive, in doing stuff like that. So figuring out that one, and that's the one I don't have a good answer for, because just saying things like, oh, well, make Paragon uncapped, well, it's like, well, then you have issues with like botting like in D3, and then you have issues where it's like you just get, it's like I don't know what the right way to put it is, but it's like people are just going to find ways to kind of cheat and to get their Paragon higher. That's just kind of the way it goes. But I think those changes alone would just add great incentive to do more of the content in the game. Another thing too that I think would also be beneficial, and this could be the way that they incentivize people to get the armor, is similar to how World of Warcraft has like normal, heroic, mythic. They could actually go to their Khazra Citadel, and they could actually potentially try to find a way to make that harder and it scale more, and then people can once a week, for example, and this is probably a really good solution actually, now I'm thinking about it, is you take the Khazra Citadel, and obviously you're going to need to add more raids in the future to support this, but you just say, hey, you can do this thing once a week, and it's going to get you higher item level gear than, what would normally drop from other things, right? And it would incentivize people to get on every week to do, the raids. It'd be very similar to WoW, where it's like you can only do a raid once a week, but you get really good gear out of the raid, right? You could do a similar thing like that. And that right there, all of a sudden, it's like, well, why do I do T4? Well, you do T4 so you can do the T4 version of Dark Khazra Citadel, and then you can actually get the highest item level armor, or have a shot at doing that each week. You do T4 so you can go do the bosses and get like a 30 to 40 item power higher level. You do T4, you see what I'm saying, is like now all of a sudden I actually have a legitimate answer as to why you should do T4 that I just don't have right now. I don't know why you do T4. Like, what's the point of T4? The only reason why you do T4, and it's not even about doing T4, it's more like you just want to see how far you can go in the pit. That's the only reason why you would be doing T4 difficult content, is because you're a pit pusher. But if you're someone that's just wants to, get better gear, better loot, yada yada, doesn't care so much about pit pushing, you don't really have a reason to do T4 ever. Until you have a lot of gear, it's not very efficient to do T4 for most builds. Not all builds. You have, obviously the OP builds are going to do T4 very well, right? But yeah. But anyways, guys, let me know what you think about those solutions. I personally think all of those are very valid solutions from a game design perspective. So yeah, let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, and see more, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.